Imagine being on the most luxurious ships, enjoying life when the unthinkable happens. Something unexpected has happened, leaving you wondering if you're going to live or die. Well, this is what many people on the Titanic were facing on April 14, 1912. The ship's nickname, the Unsinkable, was a statement of false hope because this ship could very well sink. Throughout this speech, I'll discuss the Titanic's experience before departure, during voyage, and the aftermath of the sinking. On April 2nd, 1912, the Titanic left from Belfast for Southampton with its first paying passenger. Some of the crew members, including greasers, stokers, firemen, and other support crew, had already arrived on March 29th. The remaining of the crew would join in Southampton. Shortly after midnight on April 4th, the Titanic arrived in Southampton. The next following days, the ship was stocked with cutlery, dishes, glassware, food, books, and dressed in a sparkling array of flags and pennants. On Wednesday, April 10th, the London train brought 497 third-class passengers, 245 second-class passengers, and 202 first-class passengers. The luxurious ship then set sail to Cherbourg, where more passengers were to be picked up. There is one more stop to be completed in Queenstown to gather the remaining guests boarding the Titanic. The first-class passengers on the Titanic consisted of high-ranking officials, wealthy industrialists, dignitaries, and celebrities. Most of the people traveling second class were academics, tourists, journalists, and others who enjoy a level of service and accommodations equivalent to first class on most other ships. The third class was the largest. This class contained more than 700 people, exceeding the other two levels combined. Some of the third class passengers paid less than $20 to make the crossing. It was the third class that benefited shipping lines like the White Star. The Titanic was designed to offer amenities and accommodations superior to any other ship within that era. During travel, a small coal fire was discovered in one of the Titanic's bunkers. The stokers hosed down the smoldering coal and shoveled it aside to reach the base of the fire. After assessing the situation, the captain and chief engineer consulted. It was unlikely the fire caused any damage to affect the structure of the hull. The crew members were then ordered to continue controlling the fire at sea. After the ship left Southampton, the fire became uncontrollable. This forced the crew members to attempt a full-speed crossing, moving at such a fast pace. On April 14, 1912, the Titanic received sporadic reports of ice, but the ship was sailing on calm sea under a moonless clear sky. Around 11:30 p.m., one of the lookouts saw an iceberg straight ahead. The lookout rang the warning bell and telegraphed the bridge. The ship's engines were reversed and it was turned sharply. This caused the ship to scrape the iceberg instead of making direct impact. Even though the ship could only scrape the iceberg, it still resulted in the bottom of the ship being punctured, and the bunkers being filled with water and eventually sinking. The wreck of the Titanic can now be found at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of the Canadian province since April 1912. The Titanic's maiden voyage was its first and last after the fatal collision with an iceberg traveling from Southampton, England to New York City. Of the 2,207 guests and crew members, more than 1,500 died. The Titanic fell at seabed at two parts that can now be found 370 miles off the coast of Newfoundland at a depth of roughly 12,600 feet. Fields of debris surround each part of the wreck site, including some remains such as wine bottles, luggage, and even a porcelain doll. The visitation of the Titanic's wreck site would have not been possible without the team's August expedition human-occupied vehicle. The wreck of the Titanic is one of the most famous shipwrecks throughout history. This ship was superior compared to all other ships within its era. The Titanic's experience before departure, during voyage, and the aftermath of the sinking will always be a significant story remembered throughout history.